so the last couple of times we had to do our Women's Day, whether it's Ladies First Friday or Women's Wednesday, we've had to talk about allegations and cases with violence against women. And so I do not enjoy that. Seems to be a trend and a pattern right now. On Friday, we spoke about Cassie and the charges and the case that she filed against Sean Diddy Combs. That was on Friday. Dawn, later that evening, I mean, within a few hours of us ending the show and concluding, it was reported that they settled that matter.
Correct.
Dawn, that had to be record time for a settlement. You
Very
have worked
swift
in the legal field. I am a lawyer. I've conversed with many lawyers. I saw many lawyers tweeting, and we were all saying the same thing. I have never in my life, and I've been a lawyer for a long time, almost 2 decades, okay? So I've never seen a case settle this quickly, Dawn. And to me, in my opinion, it's very telling. Now, here are the statements from Cassie after the settlement. She says, I have decided to resolve this matter amicably on terms that I have some level of control. I thought that was notable. I want to thank, she didn't say I thought that was notable. I'm saying to Dawn, I'm sorry, guys. Right. And she continues to say, I want to thank my family and lawyers for their unwavering support. Sean Combs puts out a statement, that's Diddy, and he says, we have decided to resolve the matter amicably. I wish Cassie and her family all the best. Love. Right? Okay. So, and her lawyer also just, put out a statement, just, supporting her and saying he's proud of her for doing this. And then later that night, Puffy's lawyer puts out a different statement, just basically saying, like, listen, just so we're clear, a decision to settle a lawsuit, especially in 2023, is in no way an admission of wrongdoing. Okay, that's legally correct. Mr. Combs' decision to settle the lawsuit does not in any way undermine his flat-out denial of the claims. He is happy they got to a mutual settlement and wishes Ms. Ventura the best. Well, I would say if you wish for the best, Diddy, you would have never harmed her to begin with, and we wouldn't be in this situation with a lawsuit, okay? So, Dawn, we did this, Callie Freeman from Yahoo Sports is on with me, and we talked about this, and I said during the segment, I'm certain that when we post on our digital channels, as we typically do, and this goes up on social channels, that we will be attacked for what we said, because we both believe Cassie, right? And the vitriol that came at us on Twitter, in the YouTube comments, not so much on Instagram, it was absurd. I mean, right now, days later, I still have men tag on social media. Someone sent me a post about a woman who wrongly accused someone who went to jail. Now, I don't know why this man thought he needed to send me this post, but I know, I know why he's sending it to me, as though that's
right. We know why, but it's like he didn't need to do that.
So again, I want to make clear, you could send me 1,000 of those posts. One, they're not going to exist, because false accusations of rape, sexual assault, domestic violence, abuse of this kind, it is not as frequent as the men like to claim. It is just not, which is one of the reasons why we say believers. Of course, I do not like when any person is wrongly accused of something. But there are times that we have to use our common sense. There are times we have to use our discretion. So I will just tell you that a case, if nothing happened, if there is no truth to these allegations, it is not settling with the quickness of Usain Bolt speed, okay? It's just not happening. Not settling in a day like this, okay?
Right.
And secondly, because allegations and claims like this do not happen as frequently as some would like to suggest, I'm going to believe Cassie. It is also not the first allegations against Diddy. And Salon and Rolling Stone and other publications have started to put out, publications. Because Dawn, I don't think everyone is in the same genre as us, generation, right?
No.
Black women, Black don't crack. We look great for our age, but we grew up listening to Bad Boy and Diddy's music, right? We grew up listening to it. So we know the very many different eras of Sean Combs, right?
Yes.
I think sometimes
the different names.
Like, I keep saying Diddy, but I've never called him Diddy in my life. I'm doing that now to make sure.
Yeah.
But I call him Puffy and Puff, right?
Puffy was the one, yes.
Right. And you know a person's age by how they refer to Sean Combs, right? And so I bring this up to say that I think some people may be unfamiliar that allegations and things have been thrown out about him in the past, right? So, but none of them resulted in a one-day settlement. And that doesn't mean that those aren't true, but none of those past claims resulted in a one-day settlement this quickly, okay? So I just want to set the stage for what we're saying happened.
Yes,
so with that,
thank you. Now
that I'm sort of done setting the stage, because we're going to get to a lot of things, but I want to just know, I know you believe Cassie because you've stated that already on social, and you've made some decisions that affect your bottom line as a result of this that we'll talk about. But what was your reaction to this suit and where things are right now as they stand?
I was extremely triggered, the fact that, with us having a legal background, I would say for us, the first thing we look for in these situations is where's the documents? Like, where's the court documents? Where's something that we can kind of go ahead and scan or take the time to do a deep dive into that paperwork to kind of really understand how someone got to this point to file suit, right? And then once you get to that and you see the documents, you see how many pages it's going to be. You kind of like plan out your day for the most part. But to see that trigger warning immediately, that took me out.
How much time do you see that, Dawn?
I've never seen that.
Frequent and often that is.
That is not something that you're going to see in cases. Like even in some of the Harvey Weinstein cases, there were no trigger warnings on some of those court documents. So, a lot of people have been comparing Diddy to him and just saying certain things as, why haven't we spoken up against him? Why haven't we had this same energy? Sweetie, when there's like a trigger warning on court documents like that and you read what we read, you have to really sit back and say, okay, this took a lot for this victim to come up and speak up against her alleged abuser. This took a lot for someone to decide, okay, now it's time for me to speak. Both of these people have daughters and children that are going to know about something happened and it was immediately settled so that more of the information could not quite possibly get out. And at this point, as a sexual assault survivor and child abuse survivor, child molestation survivor, there's no way I can in any way be in proximity of, a company, an organization, maybe even an employee of someone of his to be at a point to say, oh, okay, I don't mind getting cut a check to do my job because I work for one of his many companies or what have you. It's very frustrating to me that, like you said in the beginning of all of this, while you were setting the stage for this conversation, that we continue to tell people to believe us, to listen to us. And it's always Black women who don't have that opportunity to have someone save space or hold space for us when we say something that's happened to us. Why is it that you have to question us? Why is it that you have to be upset when other Black women stand up and say that, I believe you, sis. I believe you. I'm here for you. And now you've got to prove us wrong for wanting to believe them. And so it's one of those things where you hear about it, you see it, you read it, then your own lived experiences come into play. And at this point, I'm like, you know what, I'm done. Like, and yes, we come from a generation where we've heard things. We've heard the rumors. We've heard the allegations. I mean, honey, we lived through J-Lo and Diddy, J-Lo and Puffy. That was a whole ordeal. But to me, it's one of those things where, like you said, someone filed suit and it was settled immediately. And to me, that was enough for me to say that I would not return for the third season of a podcast that was greenlit to get started to filming in the beginning of the new year.
Right. And so let's give the people the background on that so they understand if they're not familiar. You were a part of a podcast called Monuments to Me. That's a part of Revolt's podcast, one of their podcasts. I want to read the description of this podcast. Monuments to Me celebrates every aspect of Black women in a world that tries to ignore or destroy them. This protected place features Black women and only Black women diving into the conversations that matter. Akila and, I don't want to mispronounce that name, Ty,
yeah.
Okay, Akila and Ty lead an endless range of discussions that will move you from laughter to tears and inspire you toward the best version of self, but trust. They stay unapologetically centered on Black women. This ain't your everyday podcast because it ain't every day that a podcast normalizes praising, celebrating, and building monuments to Black women, okay? Which is also something we do on Women's Wednesdays, on Ladies First Fridays, and is a big part of Brother from Another. So when you have a podcast with this description, when you have a show where this is the focus, to me, it's very clear why you felt uncomfortable continuing to do a podcast for Revolt.
Correct.
And as you can see, not all the time the people who come on this show are a part of the news. They cover the news, but there were multiple headlines and posts about you, doing this. And then you also announced it on Twitter. So, Dawn, again, not everyone is not willing to make a decision that will affect their bottom line. And I'm not judging anyone who stayed and decided to stay. Like, that's an individual choice. But you say here, one thing I've done throughout my professional career is be mindful of my work ethic and where I place my energy and time. I also feel like Revolt's leadership not speaking on this says a lot. And even though this podcast experience blessed me, I'm done. And I want to be careful and say that, like, we don't even know if the leadership's hands are tied, right? And that's part of the problem. Sometimes when you're in these situations, they may not be able to say anything without losing their jobs. Or we don't know. But for you, it made you uncomfortable. So you decided.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if this is for us, by us, where's the space that you hold for people that may be triggered by the very thing that you don't want to cover? At the time that the allegations came out, there wasn't even a post on Revolt's page about the allegations that had came out. They waited a while, and I can understand why they did that. But honestly, there were other blogs who didn't even run the story, even though it was broken. It was shared out by New York Times. So when New York Times got the news and they shared the news, and you want people to take you seriously as a media outlet, you have to share the news. And in sharing the news, you have to be unbiased, even if it means the founder of your media company has been alleged in said civil suit. So as far as I'm concerned, when there was no note or any type of notification that went throughout the company, which it probably went through leadership, but it didn't trickle all the way down to like some of us in like the podcast network itself. To me, you're not acknowledging what we all are seeing. And then if and when you see talent talking about it, commenting towards it, it would, in my opinion, I love this word because T.I. uses it a lot. It would behoove you to reach out to said talent and say, hi, we're here for you. We want to know how we can help you during this time. Allow us the opportunity to kind of like see what's going to happen with this legally. And if you need some therapy or if you need some time off, I know you're probably beginning your contract negotiations. Like, our show was already greenlit. We were getting ready to receive a new contract. we were supposed to send over some editorial content to start announcing that the season was greenlit. So I'm getting ready to get ready for my next season of this job. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, if I'm tweeting or posting about it, and or when I reach out to you and I say, hey, have you seen the news? What are you guys looking into? What are you guys trying to, develop for your talent that may be affected by this triggering news? There was nothing. And in the event that I receive an email after this has been settled, like literally didn't hear anything towards the end of last week going into the weekend. And then the beginning of the week, I hear something that's more like in an email, business as usual. Here's what we need from you. And I'm like, Now, wait a minute. Like, how do you think I feel? And in that instance, it's very heartbreaking, because if someone was to say, well, you could have directly reached out to someone in the podcast network that's in leadership, where was I going to do that? When I didn't even know if that was a space that I could possibly even do that. You get what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where we also have to look at how we show up for others and what they need in their daily lives. We are in some very trying times right now. Everybody's not willing to share what they're going through. And as transparent as I am, there are some things that I don't share online about what I'm going through. But if I publicly announce that I am bothered by something, or I share something, or I reach out and say that this is troubling to me, I at least want you to act like you give a damn.
Acknowledge it, validate it. And they did not do that for you. So you made your decision based on their actions, and you did what's best for you. I think in general, I posted about this. Well, I posted our segment on it, but I posted about an internal conflict that I have, because I didn't say this on air, but I want to take the time to say it now, that I think many people, but I also think women feel, when it comes to our relationship with hip hop, right? Because we grew up on it. It is the soundtrack to my life. And I used to be belting out many of those songs, disrespecting women. And I just think that I feel like it's okay for us to have this internal conflict. And I don't like, because I hear a lot of men say, well, y'all listen to it, y'all say this. Okay, we were raised on the same music as y'all. A lot of music I listen to now sometimes, Dawn, some of it I can't listen to anymore. Like Uchi Wally, like I just sat in the car and I listened to the lyrics of Uchi Wally. I said, what in the hell?
What were we thinking?
Wild, disrespectful. Disrespectful. Like many songs in rap music, right? And there was a time that I would say they're just lyrics.
Right.
And they are. And I grew up with the foundation and kind of support system around me, that I did not look to rappers, women or men, and mimic what they do. That's not to say that they didn't influence me. I definitely went to a Halloween party with my blue wig because of Little Kim and Crush on You. You know what I'm saying? So
that was one of the greatest videos.
I'm not trying to say they did not influence things, but my point is that I didn't want to emulate some of the things that they did that were degrading to women, right? But that doesn't mean everyone doesn't see it like that. And a lot of people just take their cues from that music, right? And so we've grown up in a generation, Pac said it, we're gonna raise a race of babies that will hate the ladies.
That hate the ladies, and that's where we're at.
I mean, that line is so true. And it's just every man pictured in this image has had some sort of allegation levied against them. Some have actually been charged. Abuse, rape, sexual assault, it ranges. We talked about, I just brought up a few names last week. I mentioned Russell Simmons. I mentioned Big Pun. People got mad at me, telling me I can't speak about the man because he's dead. Someone who I forgot.
Yeah, we can talk about somebody Tupac, And
Dr. Dre, he is one, because look, there are so many, but Dr. Dre is one of the ones that just irks me, because I mean, he just did the NFL halftime performance. And I mean, Michelle Lay and Dee
Barnes,
the allegation and what he did to those women, right? And I don't know that people even know. So they we could spend a whole other segment on that I won't get into, but it's no different than like racist organizations. When people say, oh, you should only buy Black and you should only do this. There's at a point, like the way society is structured, we don't have the ability to do that. Sometimes we do have to buy and spend our money with certain institutions, even though we don't want to. And so I say that meaning it's like racism in that, like, I like hip hop. I like the music. I like rap music. I like this music. I don't like the misogyny that exists within the music and the industry. I don't like that women are being harmed and there is no accountability, right? And I don't know the answer, Dawn, and I don't know how to fully reconcile it, because many things that we are taught was taught from hip hop. Right. And even before that, even our standards of beauty, the way we view ourselves as women, what's pretty, what's not, our body, our hair, everything, it's constructs by men. Right? Like you think of Little Kim, men created Little Kim's persona, right? All these different women, men created those things. And so I'm still wrestling. And so what I'm saying is I don't have an answer, but I know there's an issue and we can talk about it. And because I don't know the answer doesn't mean that I can't talk about it. So I'm going to give you the last
Correct. I feel like, I have to just mention, I'm a former music video model. So I'm someone who was in these rooms, watching how some of these artists were looking at women, talking about women before the music came on, and we had to go on and either become characters or just be eye candy for the most part. So I'm someone who comes from being in that environment and understanding how I always had to make sure that I stood tall in the room and either kept at a distance and just did my job and collected a check because I was in school and I was a single parent, or I was someone who was able to advocate for someone when I saw them possibly getting ready to make the wrong decision on set. It's one of those things where you figure out how to use this thing that is being art in our lives. It's music, it's art, it tells the times, it expresses where we are from, it expresses lived experiences. You figure out where you fit in that. And there are ways to where you can enjoy that while at the same time not bend on your morals or values, not bend and, be scared to stand up for a woman. We need more young men to stand up for more women. We need more young men to tell their friends that they're very creepy. We need more young men to really kind of like hear this lifestyle and really understand that may not be for you, sir. You may need to be something else. You may need to do something else. But if it inspires you to become your better self in some way, if it inspires you to shift your mood because you've been depressed and it's a beat that just lives in you, I feel like hip hop can still be what it needs to be, but it has more growing to go. And I mean, that 50 years, we've gotten up until this point until really we can really see a big window open up for Me Too and really kind of shift how the industry itself deals with these artists and how they prep them and how they talk to them, get them help. Some of these people just need some people around them and they need therapy. Like, if we're going to be honest, and you have the funds to do this. So let's figure out what that looks like as a community. Let's continue having these conversations because a solution and some results are going to come, because eventually there's going to be a generation of kids that's going to be like, no, we don't want that. It's not going to happen. We want better from this industry and from the people that are in it.
Yeah. Well, I hope a Me Too reckoning is actually coming, which, by the way, Me Too was started by a Black woman, and that often gets overlooked. I'm a little skeptical. I'm a little skeptical, and this has been a discussion. Will this be hip hop's reckoning and Me Too moment? Only time will tell. I hope it is. I hope these discussions continue and they do not stop with the settlement of that lawsuit.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.